There's nothing worse than a blurry drawing. Here we've got the world famous Spider-Man, and as I zoom in, you can see how pixelated this drawing is. Looks great when it's little tiny Spidey, but what happens when you zoom in? Not good at all. So in this tutorial, I'm going to walk through how to make a vector from this picture. Here I've got a picture. It's not super crisp. I'm going to make a vector out of this using Inkscape, completely free software. Let's go. Okay, if you've never used Inkscape before, it can be a little bit intimidating when you first log in because there's all these menu items along the left-hand side. There's this color palette down at the bottom. There's even more menu items along the right-hand side. And then, of course, there's menu items along the top. So it's like, where do I get started here? So I'm going to actually start this thing from the beginning. I'm going to close out this document. And when you first log into Inkscape, you'll get some sort of look like this on it. You're just going to go to File, Open, and then open the image that you were working with. So I'm just going to open up my Spider-Man image here that I've got. I've got this inked image here that I'm using. I'll double click it. It will then ask me to import the image type. I'll say Embed, Image DPI, take it from the file, Image Rendering Mode. You've got three options here. Unless you've got a really, really old computer, you don't want to use this blocky one that optimizes the speed. I use Smooth, which optimizes the quality, and then I click OK. So now I've got my image here. Now the problem with this image, it's not a vector, and when I zoom in, and by the way, if you want to zoom in, just hold down the Control key and then scroll your mouse wheel. So I can zoom right in or right out just by zooming up and down on the mouse scroll wheel. Again, I'm holding down Control. But here I want to create a vector. So I'm going to click this picture. So you can see when I click it, it now gives me these little arrows on the outside. Okay, so again, I'll click outside of it, click somewhere in the image, and this image will now become selected. To actually trace a vector, you're going to go up to Path and then Trace Bitmap. Now, I don't know why it's called Bitmap because this happens to be like a JPEG file, but Bitmap, substitute the word image for it. So trace image, trace bitmap. When you do that, this trace bitmap slider is going to come over here on the right-hand side. Now I'm using version 1.1. Okay, if you've got an older version of Inkscape, it may look a little bit different. So for version 1.1, which at the time of this recording is the new version, I've got the trace bitmap window open. And then I've got a few different options here. I've got single scan at the top, or multiple scans. Now, because this is a black and white image, I only care about the black and white part. I'm going to keep it on single scan. But if you were like, say, scanning color photos or color images, you could do multiple scans because you'd have multiple colors. Here we've got just black and just white, single scan. There's a brightness threshold. So here I've got 45%. I am just going to click this update button right here, and it's going to take a little snapshot of what we're looking at. And then you can see there's a little Spider-Man there. So if I wanted to do more than 45, I'd simply just hit the plus button and move it right up, click update again, and you can see now it's really dark. If I go to 100, it will be so dark, it will become black because everything is now selected. Similarly, if I go too light, maybe I go right down to like almost 0 and I click update, it's going to become more and more dotted lines. So there's no right answer. This is a common question I get is, well, what percentage should I use? Well, it really depends on your underlying image. So I am just going to go to 55 because you got to start somewhere, right? I'm going to click update. So this is just a little preview window here. And then I'm just going to click the apply button. And now it just does a scan. Okay. If you don't like the way the scan looks, just hit Control Z or Control Z, depending on what country you're in, but it's the same button on the keypad. Control Z, Control Z, and it undoes that. Then you can just scan it again. So I'm going to click the image. Maybe I want it a little bit lighter, and I'll click Apply. And it does the application. Now, you'll need to select the actual vector to kind of drag it away. So you want to pick somewhere where it's black. So I'm going to pick the little eye here, and I'm just going to drag it. So now I've got two images. So you want to ask yourself, which one is the vector? Well, this one, notice how I'm clicking on the white, nothing's coming up. Oh, I clicked on the black there. But here's the white I'm clicking on, nothing's happening. But when I click on the black, that now gets selected. This is the vector. Now there's another easy way to tell. Click on it and then go to this second little menu item here on the left-hand side, edit paths by node. And when I do that, you can see all the nodes come up. That won't happen on this one underneath. So when I select the underlying item here, and I want to take a, is this one the vector? Well, when I select this button, nothing happens. You can also just roll over it and you'll see how it becomes red. It's highlighting all the different vectors. Down at the bottom, you can also see it says 3,703 nodes in the image. Now, I don't like how it didn't capture all of the little nuances of this. So I'm going to try to scan this a bit darker. So I'm just going to select my vector, hit the delete key, and now I'll go back to basics here with this one. I'm going to select the original image and I'm going to make my brightness threshold a little bit darker. I'm going to go to 65. You don't have to click update, but if you're just interested, there it is. Now I'm going to click apply. And now this makes it a little bit darker. I'm going to move this off. And I like the way that looks. So I'm going to remove see the difference? One's really blurry and one's not. I'll close this out. See how crystal clear this black and white one is? This is the vector. And if I really zoom in, it's like super clear. That's the beauty of a vector. You can see here his toe, here his heel is really blurry. Whereas the actual vector file is like infinitely crisp. So I'm going to get rid of the original drawing now. Just click delete. And now I've got my original. Here is my really crisp, clean vector drawing. So this is it. Okay, well, I double clicked it there. So this is it. I'm just going to move this to there. And now if you want to export this, what you will do is you're going to just select it just like I did. Now over on the right hand side, there is this button about 5, 6 down. It says export this document as a PNG image. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to click that button. And then we can see here there's a file name and then the export button and the size. So if you want to make this bigger, you're going to hold down the control key and you're going to drag this image. So see these little arrows here? Okay. I'm going to unselect it and we'll go through this really quick. I'm going to select it once and you're going to see these arrows now pop up. Now I can stretch it. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go edit undo. I can make it taller. Don't want to do that. I want to make it just bigger. So this is the key right here, but you got to hold down the control key. That locks in the aspect ratio. So control drag makes it bigger and smaller. See how my image size is changing over here when I do that. I make it smaller, I make it bigger. Now I'm going to just scroll right out and I'm going to make it really big, like 9,000 by 7,500. I can make it really big, 29,000 by 24. I can make this as big as I want. See, that was my original page. See how this little tiny square there? That was my original page that we were working on. And look at how huge this drawing is now compared to that original page. So if you were making like a wall vector, or if you were making like a stencil for the side of a garage, this is how you do it. You make a vector and then it infinitely scales up. And then from here, you would simply select the file name. So you could select this export as, pick the output path. And then when you're ready to export, just hit export and you'll see now it starts to export. Now, depending on the size, it may take quite a while to export. Like this is a massive file now, 29,000 by 24,000. Every time you go up, imagine like the size of that little tiny square that we were working on. That's like a regular page, right? So this thing's chugging along pretty good. It'll probably take about 30 seconds to export. But when that's done, the file itself will be massive. And I'm just going to open up the actual image file here. So we can see this path that I exported is so huge, my computer actually has trouble even reading it, but it's 29,000 by 24,000. I'm just going to double click it and it opens up my image. I'll just move it onto my screen here. And we can see now when we roll in, and see how crystal clear it is? It looks blurry for a second, but then it actually gets better. It's because the file is so big, the computer's trying to read it. Look at how clear that is. That's a massive, massive photograph. So here we can see these look blurry, but all of a sudden now the computer thinks it and it goes, nope, it's actually very clear. So this is a crystal clear photograph, basically, image file of good old Spider-Man. So I hope you found that helpful. Quick little walkthrough here on how to actually create a vector and export it. So a vector file is a really, really nice way to have infinite level scaling when you're working on a design. Look at how crystal clear that is. What a good looking superhero. Holy moly. Okay, so I hope you guys found that helpful. As always, if you've got any questions about Inkscape, throw them down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching.